I still remember the day the whispers began. They called me beautiful. They also called me dangerous. In Abaka, a small village where the wind carried gossip faster than drums, my name, Uku, was spoken with both admiration and fear. Mothers would pull their sons away when I passed. Men would look, then quickly look away. I had eyes like sunrise and skin the color of polished wood, they said, but my heart was a storm no man could calm. They feared me because I didn't smile. Because I didn't flirt. Because I didn't bow my head like the other girls. And most of all, because I hated men. Not just disliked them. Hated them. They didn't know why. They didn't ask. They only saw the rage, never the reason. When I walked through the market, people stepped aside. I could feel their eyes burning into me, half curious, half terrified. Then one morning, as I picked vegetables from a stall, a careless man bumped into me. His shoulder hit mine, and before I even thought, slap. The sound echoed like thunder through the market square. He froze. Everyone froze. Even the goats stopped chewing. He clutched his face, eyes wide with fear, and whispered, "I'm sorry," before running away like a frightened child. The women shook their heads. "She's done it again," they whispered. But no one dared say it too loudly. By evening, the story had spread across Abaka. Uku hit another man. "She's cursed. No man should cross her path." I didn't care. Let them talk. Words are wind. The men of the village, foolish as they were, still desired me. Some thought I could be tamed. Some believed they could charm me. Others came to me with gifts, pretending kindness, hoping to own me. They all left with bruises. One by one, they tried, and one by one, they fell. Even the chief's son came once, proud and arrogant. "She will not dare to touch me," his father boasted. But when he tried to touch my hand, I broke 2 of his teeth. He didn't return. After that, even the bravest of them crossed the road when they saw me coming. But their fear didn't stop the elders from interfering. One morning, they sent for me. When I arrived at the village square, everyone was there, the men, the women, even the children, their eyes wide with curiosity. The elders sat in a circle under the old Iroko tree. They stared at me as if I were a wild animal they couldn't understand. "Uku," one began, "why do you hate men? Why do you fight every suitor who approaches you?" another asked. I didn't lower my gaze. I looked at them, each one of them, and said clearly, "Because I will never let a man control me. And I will never stop fighting them." The words fell heavy like stones. The crowd gasped. The elders whispered among themselves, shocked, confused. One of them leaned forward and asked softly, "But why, child? What happened to you?" I said nothing. My silence was my answer. When they dismissed me, I walked away without looking back. The crowd parted like water before me. Behind me, the whispers followed again, louder this time, sharper, cutting into the air like knives. That night, as the moonlight touched the walls of my small hut, I sat alone. I touched the scars no one could see, the ones beneath my skin. I could still hear the voice of a man long gone. A voice I had tried to forget. But I would not think of that. Not yet. The next afternoon, I went to the stream for water. The sun was cruel, burning my shoulders. The path was rocky and uneven. When I reached the stream, I filled my pot, balanced it on my head, and began to walk home. Then, my foot slipped. The pot shattered. Water spilled everywhere. I fell hard against the stones, pain shooting through my ankle. Blood dripped down my leg. Before I could move, someone ran toward me, a man, a farmer I didn't recognize. He knelt beside me, reaching for my injured foot. "You're bleeding," he said gently. Let me. But I didn't hear kindness. I heard danger. Before he could touch me, my fist flew. Bam! He fell backward, holding his face. Don't touch me, I shouted. My voice echoed through the trees. Don't you dare. The poor man stammered, I was just helping, but I didn't listen. I turned away, trembling with fury and pain. He limped off silently, his face swollen, his dignity bruised. By evening, the story had spread again. Who could beat a farmer, they whispered. Even when he tried to help her. I could almost hear the laughter behind their fear. They didn't understand that kindness was a mask, that help could become harm in the blink of an eye. I had learned that once, and I would never forget. But not everyone feared me. The Prince of Abaka, a man with soft eyes and a quiet voice, began to notice me. People said he was different, gentle, patient, kind. They said he could tame even a lioness. He began to visit me, bringing gifts, bright cloth, sweet fruits, delicate jewelry that sparkled like sunlight on water. I didn't chase him away. But I didn't smile either. I only watched. Always watched. Villagers whispered, maybe he will change her. I laughed to myself. Change me? No one changes fire. They only burn in it. Then one evening, the prince asked me to walk with him by the stream. The air was soft, the water whispering secrets to the stones. We walked side by side in silence. He smiled. Maybe he thought that was peace. But peace is not always safety. He reached for my hand, just a small, harmless gesture. His fingers brushed mine. In that moment, the world stopped. The air thickened. My blood roared. It wasn't his hand I felt. It was another's, a memory that clawed at my chest. Before I could think, my fist met his chest. Bam! Then another. Pow! He fell to the ground, breathless and stunned. The guards ran to him, shouting. His face was bleeding, his eyes wide with disbelief. They carried him back to the palace, his body broken, his pride shattered. That night, Abaka was silent. The girl who no man could touch, had struck the prince himself. And though I sat alone, I knew, this time, my storm would bring more than fear. It would bring war. When they came for me, I wasn't afraid. The palace guards marched into my compound before sunrise. Their footsteps echoed like drums of war, waking half the village. Women peered through their windows. Men stood far away, whispering, she's finished. She beat the prince. I stood outside my hut as they surrounded me, 8 men in red and gold, their spears glinting in the pale morning light. One of them barked, the king commands your presence. Now. I didn't speak. I didn't plead. I simply nodded. They tied my wrists with rope, though I didn't struggle. I walked between them like a shadow. Behind us, the villagers followed, murmuring. Some pitied me. Most wanted to see me fall. When we reached the palace gates, I looked up at the tall bronze doors, carved with lions and suns. I had never been this close before. The smell of incense filled the air, heavy and sweet, almost choking. They led me into the main hall. The king sat on a raised platform, his robe flowing like red smoke. His face was old, carved with lines of wisdom and anger. Beside him stood the queen, her eyes sharp as glass. The prince sat nearby, his face swollen, one eye purple, a strip of cloth across his cheek. When he saw me, he turned his face away. The hall was full, chiefs, elders, servants, guards. Every eye was on me. I could feel their hatred crawling across my skin like ants. The king's voice thundered through the hall. Girl! Do you know what you have done? I looked up at him. I defended myself. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. One of the chiefs shouted, "Defended yourself? Against the prince?" "Yes," I said quietly. "He tried to touch me." The king slammed his staff against the floor. "Silence." His eyes burned into me. "You dare to raise your hand against royalty? Against my son?" I stood tall. "He is a man. And I fight any man who thinks he owns me." Gasps filled the room. Some of the women covered their mouths. The queen leaned toward her husband and whispered something. His face darkened even more. He pointed his staff at me. "You are cursed, girl. Evil hides in you." Maybe he was right. Maybe not. But I would not let him see my fear. Then, unexpectedly, the prince spoke. His voice was weak but calm. "Father," he said, "perhaps she didn't mean." "Silence," the king roared. "You will not defend the one who humiliated you." The prince lowered his head, ashamed. The king turned to the elders. "What punishment does she deserve?" The oldest among them, a man whose beard reached his chest, stood and said, "In our laws, to strike a prince is treason. The punishment is death." A murmur ran through the hall. I felt it in my bones, cold, heavy, final. But the queen lifted her hand. "Wait," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "Death is too easy. Let her suffer instead. Let her serve the royal household as a slave. Let her see what obedience feels like." The king looked at her, then at me. Slowly, he nodded. "So be it. From this day forth, Uku of Abaka will serve in the royal palace as a bondmaid. Her life belongs to the crown." The guards untied my wrists and pushed me forward. My knees hit the marble floor. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I simply whispered, "At least I'm still alive." The king spat at the ground. "Alive, for now." The next morning, I began my punishment. They took away my clothes and gave me a coarse brown wrapper. They cut my hair short, stripped me of every ounce of pride. I was no longer the feared girl of Abaka. I was just another servant, invisible among the others. I washed floors. I carried water. I cleaned the prince's room, though I never looked at him. The other servants whispered behind my back. Some mocked me. Others pitied me. But I ignored them all. I worked in silence, keeping my thoughts buried deep. Sometimes, when the moon rose, I would sneak outside and stare at the river from the palace courtyard. Its dark surface shimmered like glass. I would whisper to it, "You're the only one who knows." Because deep down, I knew my anger wasn't just hate. It was memory. One night, as I scrubbed the palace steps, I heard a soft voice behind me. "You shouldn't kneel like that," it said. I turned. It was the prince. He was holding a lantern. His bruises had faded, but his eyes looked sad, almost guilty. "I'm fine," I muttered, lowering my gaze. He sighed. "I didn't mean to offend you that day." I said nothing. He crouched beside me. "I shouldn't have touched you. I see that now." His voice trembled. "I just wanted to understand you, not hurt you." For the first time, I looked at him. Not as a prince. Not as a man. But as someone who sounded sincere. Still, I couldn't let my guard down. "Understanding me will bring you pain," I said softly. "Leave before the king sees us." He hesitated, then stood. "You can't hate everyone forever, Uku." I wanted to laugh. If only you knew why. After he left, I sat alone for a long time, my hands in the cold water. His words echoed in my mind. Hate everyone forever. Could I? The next few weeks passed quietly. I noticed the prince watching me sometimes, from a distance. He didn't speak again, but his eyes followed me like questions that had no answers. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. The queen called for me. Her chamber smelled of perfume and burning candles. She sat by the window, her face half in shadow. When I entered, she didn't look up. "So," she said slowly, "the wild girl who beat my son now scrubs my floors." I stayed silent. She turned her head. "Do you know why I didn't let them kill you?" I shook my head. She smiled, cold, bitter. "Because I saw something in your eyes. Something I once had before I became queen." Her words confused me. She stood, her silk gown whispering against the floor. "You think your rage protects you. But rage is a cage, child. And one day, you'll see what truly made you this way." Before I could answer, she waved her hand. "Leave." I bowed slightly and stepped outside. My heart was racing. Her words felt like a blade, cutting deep. What did she mean? What did she see in me? That night, I couldn't sleep. The moonlight spilled across the floor, and I sat awake, staring at my hands. The truth I had buried for years was stirring. The secret I had locked away behind my anger was knocking again. And I knew, sooner or later, it would come out. I didn't sleep that night. The queen's words kept echoing inside me like a whisper I couldn't silence. "You'll see what truly made you this way." What did she mean? How could she possibly know? At dawn, I walked to the palace courtyard to fetch water. The morning air was cold, sharp against my skin. The sun hadn't yet risen, and mist floated over the gardens. I paused for a moment, staring beyond the walls. In the distance, I could see the faint glimmer of the river, the same one I used to visit when I needed to be alone. The same river that held my secrets. Something inside me pulled. My chest felt tight. My hands shook. I couldn't stay another day inside that palace. So I ran. Barefoot, I slipped past the guards, down the narrow path leading out of the palace. The mist swallowed me whole. The sound of birds was faint, but the roar of the river grew louder with each step. When I reached it, I fell to my knees. The ground was damp, the water dark and restless. For years, I had avoided this place, afraid of what I'd remember if I came too close. But now, the memories came rushing back like floodwater breaking its dam. I was 16 again. It was a market day. I had gone with my mother to sell palm oil. The sun was bright, the air filled with laughter and noise. When we packed up, she told me to wait by the tree while she went to buy yam. That was when he came. A trader from another village, older, strong, his smile wide but empty. He said kind words. Offered me roasted corn. I refused. He laughed, said I was proud. Then his hand grabbed my wrist. I screamed. But the music of the market swallowed my voice. No one turned. He dragged me behind the stalls, into the tall grass by the stream. I fought. I kicked. I bit his arm until blood filled my mouth. But he was stronger. Too strong. When it was over, I lay on the ground, bleeding, broken, the sky spinning above me. I remember the sound of water nearby. The river flowing, calm, indifferent. I remember wishing it would swallow me whole. But it didn't. That night, I walked home covered in dirt and shame. My mother screamed when she saw me. My father wouldn't look at me. They said I had brought disgrace. They sent me away to my aunt's house in another village. And from that day, I swore I would never let another man touch me again. Never. The river heard my promise. And now, kneeling beside it again, I could still hear its voice, the low murmur of flowing water, the same sound that had watched me fall apart. Tears ran down my cheeks, hot and bitter. "Are you satisfied now?" I whispered to the water. "You saw everything. You kept my secret. Why can't you let me forget?" But the river never answered. It just moved, calm as ever, carrying my pain downstream. The next morning, I returned to the palace. My feet were covered in mud. The guards looked at me strangely but didn't speak. Later that day, the queen summoned me again. When I entered her chamber, she studied me quietly. Her gaze was sharp but not unkind. "You went to the river," she said. It wasn't a question. I froze. "How do you know?" She smiled faintly. "I once had my own river." I didn't understand. But then she stood and walked to the window. "Before I was queen, I was a girl from a poor family. My beauty caught the king's eye. He took me, made me his wife. I thought it was love." Her voice trembled. "But I was just another possession. Another jewel for his crown. I hated every man who looked at me after that. I hated myself for being weak." She turned toward me. "That's why I saw myself in you, Uku. The fire in your eyes, I had it too. But fire burns everything, even the hands that hold it." I stared at her, my throat tight. "So what should I do? Forget?" She shook her head slowly. "No. Remember. But don't let it rule you." Her words sank deep, but they didn't heal me. The wound inside me was too old, too deep. Still, for the first time, I didn't feel completely alone. Weeks passed. My duties continued. I worked in silence, but something had changed. The prince began visiting the servants' quarters more often, always finding excuses to speak to me. At first, I ignored him. Then, slowly, I began to listen. He told me about his mother, how she never smiled, how his father's temper made her fade like a dying flame. He said he envied my strength. "You fight for yourself," he said one night. "I've never fought for anything." I didn't know how to respond. His eyes were gentle, nothing like the ones that haunted my memories. For the first time in years, I didn't feel anger when a man looked at me. But that frightened me more than anything. Because if I could feel something again, if I could trust again, what would become of the walls I'd built around my heart? One evening, as I carried water past the garden, I heard someone call my name. I turned. It was the prince. He stood near the orange trees, his hands behind his back. "I have something for you," he said. He held out a small wooden carving, a dove with open wings. "For peace," he whispered. I stared at it, unsure whether to take it. My hands trembled. Finally, I reached out. The moment our fingers touched, something inside me cracked, not in anger, but in fear. My heart began to race. I dropped the carving. It hit the ground, breaking in two. The prince bent to pick it up. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean." I stepped back, shaking my head. "No," I whispered. "It's not you. It's me. I can't." My voice broke. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. He looked at me helplessly, holding the broken dove. That night, I sat by the window of the servants' quarters, staring at the moon. My heart was heavy, confused. I didn't know whether to hate myself for feeling again, or to hate the world that made me forget how. The queen's words returned once more. "Rage is a cage." Was I ready to leave mine? I didn't know. But I felt the river calling again, whispering my name in the night breeze. And deep inside, I sensed something was coming, something that would force me to face everything I'd tried to bury. That night, the wind felt strange. Heavy. Restless. It whispered my name like the river did, Uku. Uku. I couldn't sleep. My chest ached, as if something deep inside was trying to break free. I stood by the window, staring at the moonlight spilling over the courtyard. The palace was silent, asleep. But I wasn't. I couldn't be. I kept thinking of the prince, his eyes, his words, that broken wooden dove. Something inside me wanted to trust him. Another part screamed not to. Trust had destroyed me once. Trust had left me bleeding by the river years ago. And yet, his kindness lingered like a gentle hand over an old scar. Before I could think too much, I heard a knock at the door. Soft. Careful. Uku. It was him. I froze. My hands trembled. What are you doing here? I whispered. I needed to see you, he said quietly. Please, come outside. Just for a moment. I hesitated, then opened the door. He stood there, holding a small lamp. His face looked tired, but his eyes were calm. I'm leaving the palace tomorrow, he said. My father wants me to oversee the Western province. I might not return soon. My stomach tightened. Why are you telling me this? He looked down at the ground. Because before I go, I want you to know something. He took a step closer. I forgive you for what happened that day. For hitting me. For the pain. I understand now. You were just protecting yourself. And I want you to know I would never hurt you. His voice cracked. Not you. My throat felt dry. You should go, I whispered. He smiled faintly. One day, you'll see that not all men are monsters. Then he turned and walked away, the lamp flickering as his shadow disappeared into the dark hallway. I stood there long after he was gone, trembling. The silence around me was deafening. I closed my door, sat on the cold floor, and finally, after so many years, I cried. Not the angry tears I used to hide behind, but the soft, broken ones that came from a place I had forgotten existed. The pain, the shame, the memories, they all came pouring out. And for the first time, I didn't fight them. The next morning, chaos erupted in the palace. I was fetching water when I heard the drums. The rhythm was sharp, urgent. People were shouting. Guards ran past me, their spears clanging against the stone. The prince, someone cried. The prince has been taken. My heart stopped. I dropped the pot and ran toward the gates. What happened? I asked a servant. Bandits, she said breathlessly. On his way to the Western province. They ambushed the caravan near the forest. No one knows if he's alive. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just ran. Through the gates, past the guards who shouted my name. Barefoot, through the forest path that led toward the western road. Branches tore my wrapper. Stones cut my feet. But I didn't care. The sound of the river guided me, always the river, the same one that had witnessed everything in my life. When I reached the clearing, I found the remains of the attack, broken carts, blood on the ground, soldiers lying still. Then I saw him. The prince was slumped against a tree, his arm bleeding. He was alive, barely. His eyes fluttered open when he saw me. Buku. I rushed to him, tearing a piece of my cloth to press against his wound. Don't speak, I said. You'll be fine. He smiled weakly. You came for me. Of course I did, I whispered, my voice shaking. You were right. Not all men are monsters. Tears blurred my vision. I held his hand tightly as the sound of the river grew louder nearby. He tried to speak again, but his lips only moved faintly. I leaned closer. Go home, he murmured. Don't let the past kill you. His eyes closed, his body going still. Prince! I screamed, shaking him. No, no, no. But it was too late. The forest fell silent. Even the wind stopped moving. I held him in my arms until the soldiers found us. They carried him away. I followed behind, my legs weak, my heart heavy. When we returned to the palace, the king was waiting. He saw his son's lifeless body and collapsed to his knees, his roar echoing through the courtyard. You, he shouted when he saw me. You brought him death. The guard stepped forward. I didn't resist. I couldn't. But before the king could speak again, the queen rushed to my side. She stood between us, her arms wide. No, she said firmly. She didn't bring him death. She brought him peace. Her voice trembled. He found what you never gave him, kindness. Understanding. She loved him, even if she never said it. The king froze. His face twisted with grief, then softened just slightly. He turned away, his tears falling onto the marble floor. Take her away, he said quietly. Not as a prisoner. Just take her away. And that was how I left the palace. I returned to the only place that ever truly knew me, the river. The same river that had watched me suffer, rage, and finally, break. I sat by the water for hours, listening to its voice. The wind brushed through the trees. The current shimmered under the fading sun. I whispered, he's gone. The river said nothing. I picked up a handful of water and let it fall through my fingers. You took everything from me once, I said. But this time, I give it freely. I dropped the piece of cloth that still carried the prince's blood into the river. The water carried it away slowly, curling and twisting until it vanished. Tears rolled down my face, but they weren't just of sorrow. They were of release. I had fought all my life, against men, against fear, against myself. But now, I was tired. The queen's voice returned in my memory. Rage is a cage. I finally understood. Rage had kept me alive, but it had also kept me chained. As the sun sank behind the trees, I rose and faced the river one last time. I forgive him, I whispered. All of them. And I forgive myself. The water rippled gently, as if nodding in agreement. That night, the villagers said they saw a woman walking along the riverbank under the moonlight, her hair loose, her feet bare. Some swore she vanished into the mist. Others said she simply walked away, never to return. But every full moon, the river of Abaka still whispers softly through the night. Buku. Buku. And they say if you listen closely, you can hear another voice answer, calm and free at last. I am no longer afraid.